Good Friday, G-Force. Tom again, your host today. G is for gratitude. When we understand the principles of gratitude and apply them in our life, it changes everything. Even in the subject we'll be talking about today, in and around suicide and how it impacts people that were impacted by that. Gratitude really changes how we look at the world. It eliminates negativity. It gives us hope. It gets us focused on our purpose in life. And so gratitude is a very powerful, powerful principle when you understand it more than on the surface level and really start applying those principles in your life. It just gives you a better perspective of everything in life, and on the positive side as well as the negative, because gratitude brings that perspective to us. Today, though, I'm really excited for a number of reasons. That the person I'm bringing in, Gavin Zastrow, is actually my wife's cousin. And so he lives here in Oconomowoc. He's a school teacher. And he's going to share his story and why he wrote his book, which we'll get into here in a moment. It is why he wrote the book and how it impacted him and why he wrote the book. So I'm not going to get into a lot of dialogue. The story is powerful. It's important people hear it because today, suicide, we're not going to talk about how to recognize suicide and those type of things, but how you would deal with it if you've been personally impacted by the loss of a loved one or a friend, and Gavin's going to be able to share that story because it is something that I can't comprehend how to deal with that. So hopefully Gavin will help you out there today if you've experienced that, you know other people. We want you to tag and share this with the audience and push it out, because we never know, one person hears this could make the difference in life and death. It may be the difference of giving somebody a way to deal with I can't comprehend the magnitude of a loss through suicide. So with that all said, tag and share. Be welcome to make comments, jump in as we go through here today. But I'm really excited to bring in Gavin Zastrow, family member, and you're going to love Gavin. Okay. Welcome, Gavin. You are live, my friend.
Excellent. How you doing today, Tom?
What I like to do is just give a little background about yourself, what you're doing in your life now, and then we'll get into the story of the book, how that all came about. And I'm just going to let you roll. I mean, I may have some questions to ask you as we go through here, but it's all yours, Gavin.
All right. So you want me to just start with some background on who I am and what I'm about?
Yeah, just give it, people get to know you a little bit, and then move into the story.
Okay. So my name is Gavin Zastrow. A lot of people call me Z for short, because I go by Mr. Z at school. I've taught in Wisconsin for pretty much my whole career since 1988, 1999. So I'm just finishing up my 23rd year of teaching. I went to high school in Oconomowoc. I graduated in the class in 1993. And I studied for school. I went to Ripon College for 1 year. Then I went overseas in England for a little bit. And then I went on to Miami of Ohio University in Oxford, Ohio. And I graduated from Miami of Ohio. And my writing career kind of started in high school a little bit with this particular novel that we're going to be talking about today, A Marshland of His Own. And I wrote that in high school. And then as I continued on, I continued writing a little bit. But when I started teaching, obviously there's not a lot of time to do that. So a lot of the stuff kind of got put on the back burner for a long time. And then most recently, since I published this book, I've started writing again. So I've been working on some new stuff. So it's kind of like I have a really big gap in the middle, and this book and publishing it later on here has brought some of it back. So that's a little bit about who I am. And what I'm about is as I've gone through life, I've learned your thing on gratitude at the beginning of this. Gratitude is something that's really important, and I've learned to be appreciative of the people that have been there to help me. And I know that I can play a role in giving back to people. So part of my promotion of what we're going to be talking about today is my way of giving back to a lot of people who have helped me throughout my life.
Wonderful. Givers gain, the principle of gratitude, even in a tragedy, because if we focused on the tragedy alone, would you probably agree? But if we reflect back what that person meant to you and the value they meant to you, would you agree it changes that perspective in how to deal with it?
Yeah, but I would also say just the gratitude of the people that were there to support me and help me through it, because I didn't know what I was doing at the time. So, but I guess that gets more into the story of the book. So I could jump there if you'd like me to, or.
Yeah, just you mentioned that you actually wrote probably the original manuscript when you're in high school.
Yes.
How did that come about? Was that something you just spontaneously said, I need to write it, or were you influenced by somebody to say this might be a healing method for you, or whatever? What's the story behind getting the book written back then?
That's a great question. So when the book was written in high school, I actually wrote it the year after our friend passed away his junior year. And for whatever reason, when we went through it, they brought in outside counselors and things like that for us to talk to. And I didn't go through the normal timeline that other people went through. So by the time that I started having some of the emotions to deal with, getting through just kind of the shock, everything was gone and everything was past. And my senior year, I kind of started doing some journaling, some jotting. And I thought it was a short story, but as I've come to learn through Mary Jo Newberg, who helped me through the process, who I'm very have much gratitude towards, she told me it was more like a journal that I brought her. And the funny part is I didn't have her as a teacher. We don't know why I showed up at her door. I had no reason to be near her classroom, but for some reason I showed up at her door with this journaling, and I said, can you help me with this? Because she was a teacher that was really close to our class and she had helped us a lot through this experience. And I said, I'm working with something here. Can you help me kind of put this down on paper and kind of make some coherent sense? And for her, she was looking for that year after, she was looking for a way that she could kind of put something in place, because when we all went through it, there was no resources for us to deal with a situation like this. And there was nothing for us to be able to kind of dig into to help us. So on her side, she was looking for something that we could put in the guidance office that would help kids if something like this happened again. And then there'd be a resource where you could pick it up and say, if you're dealing with a suicide, this is the real life thoughts of how somebody had to go through it and the process they had to take to get through it. And it may be different for you, but at least it gives you something that makes you identify with it. So it really was, it was something special that I ended up working with her. We don't know to this day how it happened. And a lot of these details have been verified in the process of getting the book published. I did get back in contact with her and we kind of reached out, and I was working under the assumption that it was a short story that I had taken to her, and it was really some journaling. So kind of through the process, I've even learned a little bit about something that happened 25 years ago.
Wow. So that occurred. What year did this process start?
Okay, so and this is another thing. Chad wasn't like one of my best friends out there. I mean, he was an acquaintance in the class, and we were good friends growing up. We went to grade school together, stuff like that. But I wouldn't say we were ever like extremely close, but we weren't far away. We were friends, and that happened our junior year. So I graduated in '93, so it would have been 92 that he passed away. And so in '93, my senior year, I started writing this and working on it with Mrs. Newberg and kind of putting the whole process into play.
Okay. And what was the predominant motivation or encouragement to take your writings to share this message out, how to deal with that loss? Uh, who was the influencer on that? I'm sure you said there's a number of people.
Yeah. I think the main thing when I was trying to get, this was my attempt at the grief process, and I didn't grieve the way other kids did. So this was my attempt at getting the grief process, getting those emotions out. And as I got them out on paper, Mary Jo she was a really inspirational teacher. She was well liked. She kind of guided me through, and it started with me just taking some things with her, and she's like, well, what about this? Well, what about this story? Oh, did you think about this? Do you think your readers would need to know this? And it took that little short story to something that was something much, much larger. And each time I'd come in, she'd say, this is good. Now, what do you think about this? And have you thought about telling this part of the story? Because she knew our class so well and she had been through it with us. So it started with me getting my emotions out, and then she kind of guided me through it. And it was my attempt at making sense of something that as a kid, you shouldn't have to make sense of. And I was trying to go through the process. And what I've learned through the process of doing this book, because there was somebody who had a few years earlier at our high school had done the same thing, in talking with some of his friends, a lot of people never truly deal with this when they go through it, and they just compartmentalize it in their mind, and then they move on, and it's always kind of something that they just kind of put behind them, and it's over and it's gone. And looking back at this 25 years later, I thought, wow, this is something I couldn't do right now, because it's written in the voice of a high school student, which I couldn't recreate this voice that's in there. And it's got details and thoughts that I had even forgotten about until I reread it and, kind of looked through it. And it was one of those processes that, it started for me to get my grief out. It moved on there, and I had an inspirational teacher guide me through it. And then it was just something that it kind of got rid of me leaving all those things bottled up, because bottling those things up probably would have been not healthy for me, because this was like a first time experience with death for me. And it was weird, because it was like one day a friend of ours was there and then he was gone. And not between death and suicide, it was a lot to handle as juniors in high school. So as a senior, this process was my way of kind of moving on from the experience. And in the book, I kind of have it set up as mourning, mending, and moving on as kind of a format for how we kind of went through it and tell some of the specific stories.
I read the book, and, it impacted me, and, in a very significant way, just comprehending, I can't comprehend, I've lost people, but it's through the normal process that we will experience loss of loved ones and friends. But I've never been involved with somebody that had deliberately wanted to end their experience here on the physical earth. So, so your language in it is from the language of a youth, right?
Yes.
A young adult, a teenager. So this book, I read it and I was impacted. But if somebody's looking at this book and wanted to use this, they'd be in the educational fields and teachers and that see these. I mean, we see it all the time. We hear about it even more today. We won't get into that and signals and what we should be looking for. That's a whole different topic. But anybody that's a teacher, would this be a great reference resource that they could use in their school? Because we hear it all the time. Would this be a great resource for them to use in their resources support of that population that's going through a trauma like that? Is that what the purpose of the book is as well?
I think that's one of the purposes that have come out of this. Is I think any high school teacher, it would benefit from having it in their classroom, and even being able to share it I had one high school that reached out. A friend of mine was connected with it, and she bought 100 copies and gave it to a high school that was going through it. And I had 3 kids from that high school reach back to me and say how much they appreciated it, and it helped them kind of put some words to what they were thinking. So I believe that's one of the purposes. And it's the great story about this book is it just keeps bringing new stories to light every year. That I mean, I'm a big believer in a greater purpose in life. And when I published this book, I was kind of doing it for myself because it was something that I had written 25 years ago that I had created. And, you know, I wanted the book to live on after me. And I had been sharing a lot more copies with people left and right. And I was just kind of, you know, it was just one of those things that was like, it feels like it could be something that should be out there helping people, but I want to publish it for myself. And then as I went through that publishing process, I started realizing all these stories about how it's helping a bunch of people, and how it wasn't about me at all. This book served a larger purpose. And so getting back to your point, this message does meet a larger audience, and I think some teachers could use it because it shows that it's bigger than me or my grief process at the time, because it captures a high school voice that talks about something that a lot of people, quite frankly, won't talk about, and they'll compartmentalize and they'll just kind of forget about it. So it's taken a journey in the publishing process where it started as something that I was doing for myself that ended up benefiting a lot of people. And once I got out of the way of the book and let the message do the speaking, it's gotten even better from that. And I mean, there's some things that have spoke to me real profoundly. My artist, all the artwork on the book is done by Orange Hat Publishing, but the artwork inside the book was actually done by a buddy of mine in high school who drew an area close to my parents' house that I walked him down the street. Yep. And I told him to draw it. And he drew it. And at the time he was a really good artist. He was a really good runner. And that was his way of adding to the story of the book. And, you know, that was 25 years ago, and we left that in place. And then when I published a book and I got a copy back in his hands, I found out he has MS and he doesn't draw anymore. And this was a way for his artwork to live on. And it was just something that was really, really cool. So that was something that it's just had so many messages like that have made profoundly affected me, and just kind of known that there's a larger purpose out there. I've had friends from high school who, I mean, one of my biggest fears when publishing this is I didn't want to do any damage and bring up any old memories and, you know, things that people had compartmentalized. I didn't want to cause any friction there. And I actually, when I published it, for about the next, you know, month or two, every 2 days or so, I'd get a message from somebody saying how they got closure for for their feelings from 25 years ago that they never dealt with. Or there was another story from a mom that told me that her son at the time was in Rogers, and she couldn't understand why he would attempt to do this. And after reading my book, she kind of knew a little bit better. There was an inlet for her to talk to her son a little bit and kind of dig through some of that. So it just kept growing from there, and it started giving people a different perspective on a horrific event, and how by talking about it and helping people through it, we could open conversations. And maybe if we help one person, then that's met its purpose, because if we save one life by this book being read, we've done our job. So this book just has kind of grown a natural life of its own, and it's really kind of made me proud. The more I get out of the way of it, the more people it's helping.
You know, you mentioned a couple things there. You know, you're very conscious that is rekindling that trauma of emotion, and you know, people but also I think what it does is your voice gave them a way to address it in a positive way, that you can put it behind. You never put it behind you. How do you deal with it in a way that you can heal? And, you know, I think that's important, is that too many people hold those tragedies, whether it be, you know, through suicide or some other reason of loss, and we hold it and we harbor it, and it's actually harming us in a negative way. So, you know, the purpose is bigger than what you thought. I can sense that. if it's okay, if I may ask this, is, that day that you were informed, where did you go? What was your first thought, your first feeling? And if I know it's in the book a little bit, but, just so that people, how shocking it was and how did you deal with it?
You know, I'd honestly, I have not reread the book recently, like in the last 3 months. I'd have to go back to really search those memories and really kind of see what it was like. When I get questions about what I was thinking when I wrote the book and things like that, I usually carefully defer to the book because I don't remember them now as an adult. That's what makes it so special. It was a high school version of me. I have to go back to the book, and it's kind of like I read it for the first time, and then it comes back to me, and there's things like that in there. Without going into it, there's a lot of time we chronicled a lot of times. We hung out with our friends. We were searching. It was before cell phones, and it was before anything like that. So the communication was we all got together in a group and went places, a buddy's house. We had a teacher come in and help us. These types of things. So for me to just off the top of my head talk about that would be difficult for me without going back and really reading specifically what it says to make sure I got it right. But I remember just being in shock and just not having the emotions that everybody else was having immediately, and being frustrated by that. And then looking around and wondering if there was something wrong with me for not being as torn up as other people. But yeah, I would refer to the book on that. And this is an important part in the editing of this book. We made grammatical changes, but we didn't change any content. And there were a lot of times the editors would ask me a question just like you did, like on this particular point, what did your mom say? And I said, I don't know. It's not in the book. I don't remember. There were specific questions that the publishers would have liked to get some more clarification on in the book that I couldn't provide because it was 25 years earlier. So I no longer had those specific memories to be able to put in there. And I wasn't going to taint the book by putting that in there and making something up. So they left it open-ended in some spots where the reader would like to know, I wish I knew what you were thinking at this point. I wish I did too, but that was 25 years ago and I don't have that written down. So.
Wow. Yeah. You made a comment there is, is you looked at yourself, you saw yourself grieving in a different way than you saw your classmates, right? Yeah. You went to a place of what's wrong with me, or am I, whatever that thought is. And I think no one can say, I understand how you feel. We can't. I'm not in your shoes. There's no way that I can understand it. So you were struggling with your grieving process. Is that right, wrong, or am I different? Or is
it was, I was going through a grieving process, and it was the first time I really went through a grieving process in my life. And I didn't understand how that process worked. And this book shows that process the way that I went through it. Now, kids that are going through it nowadays, they might not experience it the same way. They might not have the same thoughts that are in this book, but it gives them a reference to see that other kids are having some similar thoughts that they had. There are some, there are some dreams that I had that I was able to capture in this book that were just, I didn't know if I was having them or if other kids were having them. There's things of that nature in there. And it shows anybody that's going through this for the first time that whatever they're feeling, however they're going through it, it's okay. And that they need to talk to people about it instead of internalizing everything, because if they don't deal with it, it's going to become a problem for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, part of your purpose is that gives people a perspective, maybe look at things from a different angle, or, that's what I'm thinking and that's what I'm feeling, and it gives them a reference to deal with it. But I think one of the most important things, I think, off screen before we went live is that how it impacts people. When we see that happening around us, we need to know who to turn to in this. So when we encounter these type of situations, whether it be youths ourselves or adults, we need to reach out to people who can help and guide you through that grieving process, because it can lead to other situations that they're not healthy for an individual. So would that be your recommendations? No matter, seek out some guidance, read a book like this, maybe give a perspective, reach out to a school counselor, professional in those areas. Do you think that's prudent advice?
Yeah, I think this is just a resource, but it's by no means the answers. I'm not a trained counselor. I'm not a trained psychiatrist, anything like that. If you're dealing with things that are of this nature, use this as a resource, but then get somebody professional that you can talk to, and you can kind of dig through some of that. One of the things I realized through writing this book was that I had a life experience that allowed me to experience many emotions that many did not. And it kind of created an opportunity, and I had a choice to make something good come out of this awful tragedy, or I could just let it be. So I took the opportunity to share emotions that were very raw to me at the beginning of my career, or at the beginning of my process here. And these raw emotions were something that just I look back at it, and I took an opportunity to share something that I didn't realize what I was doing at the time. And 25 years later, when we started sharing it, I still didn't really realize what I was doing. And that was a couple of years ago now that we've published. The path the book keeps taking, every time I think that the message might be run its course, something new pops up where somebody references it, or somebody uses it, or somebody wants to talk a little bit about the message because it's made an impact on them. So it's kind of one of those things that it keeps the conversation going. But the conversation only goes so far with somebody like me. If you are having any issues with anything like this, you need to be talking to somebody instead of bottling those feelings up.
Okay. Besides writing the book, what else have you done? Have you done any public speaking, gone to other schools, or have you done anything like that to help?
At the beginning of this process, my publisher set me up, and I was opening lecturer for another author at Waukesha West High School. And it was more about his book, because mine wasn't even out in publication then. And then through the publication of this book, I have a buddy who is really connected with Oconomowoc Rotary. So I talked to the Rotary for a little bit. I did talk to, I did do some public things at some firemen's parks and some picnics like that. And then there's an event in Oconomowoc every year about opioids, and I've been at that event selling my books. And I've just kind of gone around where I did the local bookstore, Books and Company, and kind of promoted the book there and had people come in. So I've done a bunch of little events all the way through, and I did a podcast called Teachers Pep Rally. All this is available on my Facebook page that is dedicated to the book, that a buddy of mine at 3 Barn Productions kind of set up for me. And he made that Facebook page so that we could chronicle all these events all the way through, from the book signing to the release to everything like that. And it's really turned out to be a good way to look at the development of the book, because it's almost like its own personal life that it's taken as well. So I think that answered your question. I'm not sure.
Because a book is one way to get a message out, but there's other ways to bring awareness. I think awareness, people not they've experienced, don't realize how impactful it is at an emotional grieving process, and just bringing awareness. Are you open to do talks to groups, whether other podcasts or live streaming like that, to get this type of message out, either public speaking, or are you open to those channels?
Yeah, I'm open to any and all opportunities to promote this book in a way that is something that can get it in the hands of people that will help. Because again, if we can help one person, then it's worth it. And I will, any and all avenues I can use to promote in the message of the book is kind of the goal. Because I really think it's done in that high school voice, and it's so hard to have anything in a high school voice that is genuine. And I mean, and this one is genuine, because when we published it, I couldn't get back to the place that some of the things were written from, because they were written 25 years earlier when I was a high schooler. So I really think that's probably the most effective part of this book, is a high school kid writing it for high school kids. And it's something no adult could mimic, because as an adult, I don't remember having some of the feelings that I wrote about in the book. And it was kind of like what was supposed to be one of the best weeks of my life, and it was one of the worst weeks of my life. And at the same time, it was some just unknown thing that it took me on a journey. And that journey at the time was getting my feelings down on paper and working with a high school teacher. Then the journey was 25 years later, taking it off the shelf and publishing it for myself. Then it was, oh, wow, it wasn't about me. It's about a message of a book. And the journey was moving on. So for me, I keep waiting for the next step of the journey, because I really feel that there's a divine intervention here of pushing this message forward and not letting it get lost. And any and all opportunities to share that message of the book, that it's okay to have feelings, that you just need to know how to deal with them. And you need to see the right people, and if you're having feelings that you don't know what to do with, and that you aren't alone, and there are other people out there that have had to deal with the same thing, and they may not deal with it in the same way, but they can this gives you an avenue that you're not alone, which I remember a lot of us thinking that week, that we were alone. And it's not true. There's a lot of people who are dealing with this, and you need to find the right people to talk to so you can deal with it properly.
Wonderful. Wow. I just encourage people to that are out there, that are in that environment, to see it that are teenagers, young people that have ended it, that people know there's a resource out there that speaks to those that, I love the way you phrased, for those that were left behind, how to deal with those things, and speaking that language. I think that young person that you were, I know it's going to resonate with anybody out there, because it's prevalent. It's everywhere today. We see it every day on the news, and so I'm here to support Gavin, that message, and get this out there, because it's needed to know that, hear that voice from the voice of the person that experienced it. There's no way that I could write a book and talk to a youth. I don't talk as a youth, just like you don't talk like a youth or think like a youth. So I think that's one of the key points which you shared today. What's your biggest takeaway in the area of this book on a personal level that is pushing you to that, what I call a purpose and vision in your why? What's the one thing takeaway from this experience that's caused you to put that out there?
Well, there's been a lot of takeaways from this book, and I think the biggest takeaway was that it's firmly implanted my divine intervention, my belief in higher power. Just watching the natural progression of the book, anywhere from the author or the illustrator having MS now, but not having it when, so it's a part of him lives on, by me going and pulling it off my shelf and actually publishing it 25 years later. It's inspired me to kind of start thinking about what I should be writing about again. And it forced me to pick up, or not pick up a pen and pencil. It's kind of, but go back to the computer and start typing some of the stories that I've experienced a lot in my life, and there's a lot that I can share with people. And I kind of wasn't putting it down on paper. So now I've started to go back and put some of it down on paper. And it also made me take a closer look at some of the stuff that I did write when I was younger, and how some of it I could publish for myself and some of it I could publish for other people out there. So even though I made that mistake with this book where I was publishing it for myself, I've got some things that I'm working on that I'm publishing for myself that'll probably be like 20 copies to just close family and friends, because it was something from a different version of me a long time ago that really doesn't serve a purpose anymore. But then there's some other things that I'm working on right now that are some short stories and things of some events that I'll share. One, for example, I recently had a story published in Educator Insights on a fourth grader that had died of a brain aneurysm. And I wrote his story. We created a foundational baseball tournament in his memory. And I wrote a story based on the experience of how that went and affected the community. And then that story got published in Educator Insights, and it's split between 3 different issues. So there was an experience there that I had that I could put to pen and paper or computer or whatever you want to call it, that is something that turned out to be really, really a cool story of community. And I've got a lot of those that I'm kind of working on bit by bit. And so though, I guess it's the purpose is that it's gotten me to kind of see that there are some things I should be sharing instead of keeping them to myself.
That I think that's important. You mentioned something I think it's very important, that in faith and higher powers made sure this story is getting out there, preserving the legacy of the artist, your friend that did the artwork. The memory, the legacy of your journey, and creating even a legacy for your friend, that he's not forgotten.
Yeah.
That he's not forgotten. And it brings tears to my just even thinking that's divine intervention, working through to make sure that your why, your purpose is put out there for people to benefit from. If we just influence one person in life, you being a school teacher, you know this, you've educated, I don't know how many thousands of kids you've been around, but the real testimonial is if you just touch one person in life and significantly make an impact, whether it be saving their life or motivating to believe in themselves beyond what they believe in their own capabilities, we have served our purpose. And you're serving a purpose at a higher level. And I really appreciate that at an emotional level as well. So anything else? I know you got a big day planned here today.
But I would tell you, and this is one thing though too, it's not about me though. And that's one thing that it's about the story, and it's about, and that's one thing that I learned through this process, because at the beginning of it was about me. And now I've learned that it's about this story. It's about this message. It's not about me. And and when I learned that was when I got out of the way of the book and it started doing its best work.
Well, we're here to support you. This goes out to a number of our people I'm associated with. I will be pushing this out. I'll be getting that information to you so you can share this. And I just encourage anybody that's watching this right now, share and tag your community. Gavin, you'll be getting this, and I'd love to have you back on again when you start writing some of your other stories, because I know you personally, and I know your humor, and I know a lot of things about you. You're a fun person, that you got a great smile, you got a great heart, you're a man of faith, you're a man of understanding there's a higher power than ourselves. So in closing, I know you got something going on today. You're going to get out to that golf course and whack that ball around in the 90-degree weather today.
So got to do
anything else, my friend?
What's that?
Anything else?
I think we've covered most of it. So I want to thank you for having me on the show, and thank your listeners, viewers, for anything they can do to promote this message on. Because one of the best thing for the message of the book is for it to get to people that share it to other people. So it's being shared by people that I don't know to people I don't know. And I mean, that happened a little earlier when I did another podcast that's on my Facebook page for Teachers Pep Rally, where it was one teacher sharing it to 1,000 teachers. And I didn't know any of those people. So that's a message for me. That's important for me because it shows that the message is resonating and moving forward.
Yeah. You just mentioned something. I want to put it up so everybody has an opportunity to see that physically. Your Facebook for the book is, what's the name of it? What's your Facebook group?
It's called Marshland of His Own.
I'm gonna put that up here. Just give me a moment.
Yeah,
I'm dyslexia, so I'm gonna make sure I don't misspell anything.
If you have the link, otherwise I could probably pull it up and send it to you.
I'm gonna put it here so it'll be live on in the streaming of his own.
And as you're doing that, I'll just say thank you to everybody that is taking a listen to this. And that page has a bunch of resources, but if you need to get a copy of the book, if you're like, this sounds like a book that I might be interested in, it is available on Amazon.com. If you're local to the area of Oconomowoc, it's available at Books and Company as well. The one thing that you will notice in the book, though, is that this was one thought that I forgot to mention. Our publishers made a conscious effort to try to keep names of towns and places like that out of there to keep the message universal, so that it would hopefully connect with more kids. So if you go to the Facebook page of Marshland of His Own, it's up there on the screen. You should be able to follow and see all the different events that have been done with the book as well.
Great. I'm going to put you, in the green room, as I call it. Enjoy the M&Ms and the things that you negotiated with me.
Okay.
and it's just
there's a pile of cash in there, isn't there? Right next to.
Well, that's always open for negotiation. I bring the business guy out in me. But anyway, I appreciate you being here. So grateful that I had the opportunity to have you share your purpose and your why with the book. So I'm going to put you in the back room. We're going to sign out and just hang on for another minute.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks a lot.
Get more information. You go to Marshland of His Own, his Facebook page, getting the book, sharing this out, Amazon. If you want to contact Gavin directly, there is his email. If you got any questions or you want to invite him on one of your shows, public speaking, whatever, I'm sure he's open, like he shared, to get this message out. So that's how you get a hold of Gavin here. But today, I'm so grateful for this moment. I'm so grateful what Gavin has shared, because this moment is the most valuable time we have. How we deal with that time dictates how we're going to deal with the future. And this book will help those young people hopefully find a way to deal with something that is what we call a tragedy. So with that all said, G-Force, we're signing out Monday, 1 p.m. Central Time. And we'll be diving back into the book, The Power of the Subconscious, by Dr. Joseph Murphy. Some of the principles we use, that the outcomes and results we get in life are not from the intellect, but from the subconscious mind, and how they're formed and how to change those thinking processes to change results that you seek in life. So we're going to be diving back into that book starting Monday again. God bless everybody. G is for gratitude. When you understand and apply gratitude in your life, everything within you changes, those around you change, circumstances in life have a different perspective. Study gratitude. Tom Ginn, we'll see you on Monday. we are.
How'd I do?
Oh man, awesome, man, awesome.
You come across
So what I'm going to do, Gavin, what's your home address there?
261 Summit Avenue, Oconomowoc, Wisconsin.
Yeah, I got all that, buddy. I just needed the physical address.
Okay. Never know.
Yeah. So no, I think it went quite well. What's your feeling?
I felt it went well. I felt I was able to share the message. I hit on most of the points that I normally hit on. I like having that PowerPoint up when I do these because it makes me not say and all that type of stuff. I feel like I was a little more formal in my speaking that way then.
Here's the key, something I'm learning from my mentors. It's your authentic self that shows up is the most important thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what resonates. That's what gets people to listen. So that just your authentic self. Yeah. So you did wonderful. I appreciate it. Any way I can support you, I will. So.
Yeah. I really appreciate you having me on. It's my birthday today, so I'm hitting like.
Oh, really?
A million things on Facebook right now that, that's why I'm going golfing too.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So yeah, but I really appreciate it because you have a bunch of people that I would normally not connect with as listeners. So the more people that we reach, the better off it is. Because if one of those people finds the message and they read it and they share it, it starts a whole new chain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I will be pushing it out to my network, tagging them, and they will push it out, and they will even make comments as well. So okay. I'm gonna push it over to you, so you have the Facebook stream over to you. Okay. I will download the full video that you can use in any other marketing or any other thing you want to use it for. So it's your resource.
Can you send it just all at one time so I can just push it out from one email? Like when it's ready to be pushed out, send it to me so I'll push it out.
Yeah. This stream.
Yeah.
I know you got to hit the golf course, but once I get off of here, then I'll go back in and start tagging and pushing it out. I'll push it out to you.
Like after you've done your tagging and stuff, then I'll push it out. So I might not push it out until tomorrow, but
that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, bud.
All right. But you think it sounded good?
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful.
Did the message of the book well then? I didn't do my main thing when I do these is to do good and not do any damage. When I was going through, one of the slides had a wrong piece of information on. I don't know if you caught that. Where I started talking to them like, oh wait, I'm on the wrong slide.
No, I would never have known. So you're good. It resonated with me, and we'll get that pushed out. So
good. All right, thanks a lot, Tom.
Your mom's still there?
No, she left. They left right at the beginning of this. She had an appointment she had to go to, and
okay.
She was. They were. I'm like, don't worry, you'll be fine. Nobody's going to hear you in the background. If they do, it makes it authentic.
Yeah,
one of those.
Yeah, this is. Yeah, it's a low key production here. So raw and real, as they call it, raw and real.
It was easier to do that one than it was to have 4 people asking you questions. That was tough. That doing it with 4 people was different.
I could imagine. Wonder what the next, you're trying to answer a question and wonder what the next person can answer. Your mind can't stay focused. So
yeah,
hit the ball long, putt once, right?
All right, cool. Thanks, Tom.
Okay, we'll see you soon. Bye.
Talk to you later.